We are so thrilled today at our Grand Potential podcast. We have an absolutely extraordinary sales trainer who supports and guides and leads businesses around the globe to be successful, both personally and professionally. And he has such an impact in business success that we are thrilled and blessed to have him speak at our Grand Connection event, as well as have him here on our Grand Potential podcast. His name is Eric Lofholm, and he's taught his proven sales systems to thousands of professionals around the world. And he is the president and CEO of Eric Lofholm International, an organization that he founded to professionally train people on the art and science of selling. From working with Tony Robbins to sharing the stage with a who's who of speakers at the Get Motivated seminars, Eric's used his own successful background to develop extremely unique programs to help anyone dramatically improve all areas that contribute to increasing their income and their happiness and joy. Eric, thank you so much for being here. So our journey today is really going to be exploring the whole sales arena with you and how businesses can become the sales superstar that they naturally are. And what I'm curious about is your story. So your story of becoming this leader to impact and influence these businesses around the world. So can you share us and connect us? Our first value at the Grand Connection is connect. So can you share with us what your story is?
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm excited to share these ideas with your listeners from all over the world. And I got started in sales not because I wanted to do selling. I met a very successful real estate investor, and I wanted to be mentored by him. And so I was willing to do whatever job he had for me. And he said, if you want me to mentor you, you need to do sales. And so, okay, that's fine. And I was terrible at it. This was in my early 20s. At the end of my first year, I was the bottom producer. For a whole year, I missed quota 2 months in a row. And I was told I had one more month or I would be let go. So if any of you that are watching and listening to this, if you've ever struggled in sales before, that was me. And I was about to lose my job, and I met my first sales mentor, a gentleman named Dr. Donald Moyne, who's just an absolutely brilliant trainer. And I was hungry, and I was motivated, and I was coachable. And so he taught me what to do. And I hit my quota. That month I was on quota probation. And the next month I became the top producer in the company. I went from worst to first in 60 days. And I then started teaching sales skills to my coworkers, not as a profession, but as a passion to train. I just love teaching. And so I took Dr. Moyne's ideas. I started teaching my coworkers. That job finished up. And I was then drawn to go work for motivational superstar Tony Robbins. I had a 3-year run with Tony, and I traveled all over the country working for Tony. And then in 1999, I started my current company, Eric Lofholm International. And so I've been training professionally now full-time since 1999. I've traveled all over the world, worked with thousands of people all over the world. And I just love lighting people up, getting people excited about this thing called sales, because a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with it.
They really do. And the fear factor is enormous. I just want to say that I love your story because it's so similar to mine. I saw my ticket to freedom was learning how to sell. And I love that you became just supporting and guiding and teaching those coworkers, because you learned so much in the teaching, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that fueled your purpose and passion really to serve the world in a meaningful way. And I just really commend you for your courage to go from zero to hero in that 60 days. to be the lowest to the highest. So that must have felt extraordinary. And I know that you reflect back on that sometimes too. So my next question is this. So your passion is fueled by being a teacher. You love teaching sales. I can feel it when you share. So can you tell us, how you really connect people to that transformational experience that they can go from minimal to nothing and become very successful at inviting and asking for the business?
It really comes down to learning how to think differently. And we live into our story. And so a lot of people's story is, I'm not good at sales. I talked to a gentleman today, he's in real estate, and he said something like, I'm my worst enemy. I have all this negative self-talk. And so he's saying what's going on as a declaration. He's declaring, I am my own worst enemy, not realizing how the power of our own language. And so I was helping him understand that you're creating that through your words. And so it's teaching people how to think differently. It's teaching people the possibility of becoming great at sales. And the thing about sales, it is a learned skill. And a lot of people believe you're either born that way or you're not, and they don't have an optimistic future about selling. So it's kind of like, why try? If I can't get good at it anyway, why try? And I help people realize that, yes, you can get good at referrals and closing and objection handling. And there are specific best practices and how-to techniques. And with the right training, you can do it. And so it really opens up possibility for people, and whatever their messages that they have to get out to the world, or this company they have, or this product they want to share with people. And I help people take out that fear. I mean, that really is a big piece of it, is deep down that is that fear of rejection. What if this other person says no? And so I have just some really solid practical ideas that people can apply.
I knew this conversation was going to be grand, because everything's grand around here, Eric, just to let you know. So this is really incredible. And the truth is, your dedication to teach these people, I think, has such an influence. I mean, you have your 3 specific keynotes that you speak on, I do know of. Yet, can you connect us with this concept, an idea of being an influencer, had the ability to influence? And I want to preface that Susan and I lead the Grand Connection, where we have attracted businesses from around the world and from 35 different countries. And it's so meaningful. And it just breaks our heart to see all these businesses with gifts, talents, expertise, and so much knowledge and wisdom to share, yet they feel so insecure to ask for the business, or really, like you say, level up or step up and show up to do that. So, I'm just really curious about what you do in regards to supporting businesses to be an influence in their industry.
Well, influence has to do with looking at things from the other person's perspective. And it's counterintuitive, because our favorite thing to talk about is ourselves. So you go to this networking event and a lot of people there want to talk about themselves. But the thing is, if I want to influence my 15-year-old stepdaughter, I've got to look at life through her lens. So what's it like being a stepdaughter, where she has me as her stepdad, and she didn't choose me, her mom chose me. So now all of a sudden I have power and authority over her. And then she's living with us, and she's living with her dad. And what's that like? And what's it like being a 15-year-old girl in this day and age with social media? And if I enter her world and look at things from her perspective, I can now begin to influence her. And so this is kind of like the starting point of creating what you want in business, is looking at it through your customer or client's eyes. If you're a business owner, thinking about it through the eyes of your employees. What's it like working for you, or your contractors, or your joint venture partners, or me being on your podcast right now and thinking about, okay, how can I be the best guest for you and for the listeners? And taking it from that position, and then going deeper, coming from a place of service. not for my own agenda, but accomplishing what I want by serving others. So if we look at it from the other person's perspective and we show up from a place of service, that will really, really further you and your business.
Absolutely. And it just weaves into one of our philosophies with the Grand Connection. We call it grand giving. So how can I serve first and then receive? So it's completely in alignment. I knew this was going to be good. Oh my goodness. Okay. So last question for my section on Connect. Can you connect us with some of the glorious, magnificent success stories of your students and clients that truly have implemented this philosophy, these strategies, these tools and resources?
Yeah, well, I have one client and he has a heating and air conditioning business. And so his employees or contractors, whatever they are with him, they're technicians. They install heating and air units, they repair them. They're not salespeople, but he looked at it, he says, there's an opportunity if they're in the home and maybe their air conditioning needs to be replaced, so they could sell them a new one if that's the right solution, or sell them some type of service agreement or whatever the case may be. So he got this idea, why don't I bring an Eric sales system with my technicians? So we turned these technicians into salespeople. And one of the things he told me is it brought in so much business that he was able to go from renting the building he was in to buying the building. And then I taught him how to structure joint ventures. And he went to Home Depot and said, hey, do you ever refer out the installs when somebody buys a heating and air conditioning unit? And they said, absolutely. We refer it out to local people. And so he got on the list and did $250,000 in business in year one, just by asking if he could be a recommended solution. So these are a couple of examples of what Rick was able to do with his business.
Wow. And, it's just having the willingness, isn't it? Just to ask.
Yeah.
We in the breakout rooms at the Grand Connection events that we lead, one of the things that our mutual friend, Terry Lee Harrison, talks about is when you're in a breakout room, what's your big ask? Receive the support, but you got to ask first. And all he did was walk into Home Depot and ask. It's a beautiful story. Thank you. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to pass the baton to Susan, and she's going to really go into our second core value, which is create.
Eric, it's so phenomenally grand to have you here. We've been following you for a long time. And of course, we have our mutual friend, Terry Lee, who's introduced us to us. So we're so grateful you're here. And my section is on create. How can we create success? How can we create new skills? Of course, and today, how can we create sales? Everyone in business needs to learn how to sell. I mean, even if you're a business owner and you're going to hire salespeople, you're still selling your business. So it's just so important for all of us entrepreneurs. And hearing your story about training the technicians is proof that everyone can learn to sell with the system. I bet you those technicians didn't know that they could be salespeople, did they?
They never, ever thought about that as a possibility. And we just showed them a system and they're like, well, I can do a system. I mean, anybody can follow a system if they're coachable. So yeah.
And, just creating a system for yourself and possibly for some of our team, because a lot of us have people working with us too, as we're in small business and we get our first VA. And now right now we're actually looking through it, trying to train one of our VAs, a little system to reach out to some of the people who've been guests at our event, and creating a system around that will help her be able to bring in some new members. So we're really excited about the idea of systematizing the training. Now, I'm just going to give you a little background about myself. My first job after university, I have a marketing degree, and I got this marketing degree. So I'm all keen. I'm super, when you leave university, you think you know everything until you get out there. And I had a job at a radio station in sales. I wanted to be into advertising, but I was too green, and they said, go get other experience. So closest thing was selling advertising. So I got fired after about 6 months because I couldn't close. There's some other reasons for getting fired, but I know looking back that part of it was I was out there. My leads were great. I had this great funnel of leads, but I never asked for the sale. It never gave me any training. So I didn't have a system. It was just sort of dog eat dog. There were no territories either. Like everybody was just crazy. And But I think back and, I would go in there and I get all people all excited. I send them, but I wouldn't say, hey, when do you want to book your radio spots? And I never even did that. So I think I've over the years become unconsciously competent in sales from practice, but I never have done sales training. And I think with our members here, how can we become consciously competent at sales so that we can do it right, even if we don't think we know how to do sales?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the power of a system. And back to the technician example, I mean, these are not traditional salespeople. They weren't desiring to get good at sales, but it was just, hey, this is your job. And Rick told them this is what we need to do. So they bought in because that's who their boss is. If technicians can learn how to sell, anybody can learn how to sell. And I had that similar experience you did in radio, where I got started in sales with no training. And it's like, no wonder I was the bottom producer. I had no idea what I was doing. And then once I got trained, sales just skyrocketed. And so it really comes down to understanding how to generate leads from those leads. How do we book them into an appointment? And then what's that appointment look like, including the ask at the end? In my world, I call the ask the final close, the sentence that you say when you're asking for the order. And so anybody can ask. You don't have to have any special skills to ask, but you do need to know that's an intentional part of the conversation. And you want to have your talk track down. What am I going to actually say? What are the actual words so I can practice? And then when it's time to ask, I know what to say. And so everything you're describing, these are all things that anybody can learn.
So you have something you call the 3-step sales system. Can you give us a little idea what that's about?
Yeah, from a teaching standpoint, I like simplicity. And so when I am teaching, I'm like, how can I explain this to somebody in a way where it's easy to get? So my 3-step system, step number 1 is sales model. Step 2, I call it sales mountain. And step 3 is sales script. So sales model is figuring out when you get a lead, the question is, and then what? And then what? And then what? And so you want to map that out and write it down. So a real estate agent might get a lead at a networking event, and then they would call up and they'd book a listing presentation, and then they'd run the listing presentation. And then they'd either ask for the listing or they would book a second listing presentation, and then they'd ask for the order. So they'd either meet with them once and ask, or meet with them twice and then ask on the second. And that's a strategy question. So that's the sales model. Lead, and then what, and then what, and then we document it. Sales mountain's just another word for outline. So every time we meet with a prospect, you want to prepare in advance. My best practice that I teach is an outline. So what am I going to do first? What am I going to do second? Just like baking a cake. There's a sequence to how we bake a cake, and you can go buy a cake mix off the shelf and anybody can bake a cake. So we have a way to deliver an effective sales presentation. I call that sales mountain, which is the outline. And then sales script, it's the talk track for each outline point. And it doesn't necessarily need to be word for word, or it can be. It depends on the industry. But the bottom line is this. I want a person to go into a presentation knowing what they're going to say, when they're going to say it, why they're going to say it, how they're going to say it. So they got their outline, they know their outcome. This is what I want to accomplish. And then they can go in and they can execute. And these are not hard things to learn. You do need somebody to explain it. But once you get it, you're like, oh my gosh, I can do that. This is such a relief. It's not this overwhelming thing. So we dissect it down, 3 steps, easy to understand. And I found this could be applied in any industry.
And I guess then once you've gone through this system with let's say you're working with the business owner or the top sales guy, you can then replicate this with all of the people who want to be, and then scale your business, because now you have that system that works with everybody.
Yeah, well, back to the technician example, let's say you had 4 techs. So we get the system down, we train the 4 techs, and it's a repetitive presentation. So the technician's walking into a home and it's the same. He's dealing with the husband and the wife, or he's dealing with just one of them, or whatever the case may be. It's a repetitive presentation. The tech selling the same products. So the real estate agent has the listing presentation, the loan officer selling a loan, the coach is selling coaching, the consultant selling consulting, the insurance person selling insurance. So they're giving this repetitive presentation over and over and over and over and over again. It just makes logical sense to take the time out to figure out what is this effective process? And what most people do is they wing it. They do just the opposite. And so you always want to remember that when you wing it, you get wing it results. And then if you get good at it, like what you were talking about, you can become unconsciously competent, where you're actually developing a pattern for how you sell without even being present to it. Like you're just doing it, right? But when you actually document this out, it does make it duplicatable. And it sometimes people they get a presentation down. They get good at a bad presentation is what I'm trying to say. And so the way that I teach it, it's very simple. This is not a complicated thing, and it doesn't take years and years. We're not trying to figure out how to be a dentist or a doctor or do brain surgery. We're just trying to figure out, how do I consistently deliver a 40-minute presentation successfully? It's really not that big of a thing when you understand it the way that I teach it.
So when you start working with a client, like what do? Do you come in and listen to them on sales calls to get a feel of it? Do you record the phone calls? How do you get into you got to understand that business, right?
For me, I get on a call with somebody and I just be with them. So when I'm coaching, I'm not following like a cookie cutter process. I just get on the phone with somebody and I just listen to them. And I was coaching this one solar salesperson, and she said, as a declaration is a way of being. So she said, I'm not a same day closer. So she's basically saying, when I go in the home, I don't close. I don't even try to close. Well, why don't you do that? Because I'm not a same day closer. So she's living into that story. And so I had to help her undo that, because in solar, you need to be a same day closer. You ask for the business while you're there. So I just be with somebody and I listen to them. And from what they're telling me, I might need to help them with their mindset. It may be their scripting. Sometimes I talk to people and they're following the wrong lead strategy. They're going after the lowest quality lead, which is like a lead off of LinkedIn or Facebook or something, or cold calling. It's like, no, let's build relationships like what you guys are teaching. Let's connect. Let's leverage networks. Let's collaborate, right? Because the close ratio is like through the roof. The appointments are through the roof. And so sometimes it's a lead issue. Everyone's different, but the core system is the same.
So I'm a web developer. That's my other business. And I spend a lot of time actually talking to people about what's your sales process so that I could figure out how to put that on the website. Have you found through the last decade, and even just through COVID, that because more people are moving online and people are starting to research online, that some of the stuff you do in your sales training is shifted in the last decade, like due to trends in the market?
Well, some industries have certainly changed. I mean, if you think about selling cars, it was unheard of to buy a car over the phone. And now it's common. And also in the car business, if you or I, any of us are going to go buy a car, we're probably going to go research it, and we're going to know the basic price before we even walk onto the dealership. So the consumer's way more educated. That's true in real estate as well. We can go on realtor.com or similar websites. We can all see the value of the home. Whether you're renting or you own, you can see right on the internet the basic price. So the consumer is different. And then you bring in virtual selling, where nowadays it's so common for sales that you would never do, like solar, for example. Solar was always an in-home presentation. Now people sell solar on Zoom. So the way people are buying is shifting. There are definitely some changes. And the last one is social media. I actually do most of my prospecting with direct message over social media nowadays versus picking up the phone and calling, where when I launched 25 years ago, you had to call. There was no social media. You weren't texting people. Email was not a common thing at that point for prospecting. At least it wasn't for me. So it was all about the phone. But now I usually do the reach out over social media.
So just clarify, what do you mean by solar, being that example you're using?
Putting solar panels on the roof of your home and no longer using the electricity,
Okay. Yeah.
generating your own power, that kind of solar.
So given I live in a place that never sees the sun in Vancouver, BC, we don't have many solar salespeople coming around here at the moment.
Makes sense.
But in many parts of the world, that's very popular. I just want to make sure, because I know we got a lot of BC people listening. That's what he's talking about. And One thing I was thinking about is the mindset part of it. How do you have the right mindset to be a sales superstar?
It probably needs to be coached, because I was not born with a good sales mindset. And I think most people, when they start off in selling, they have a resistance, because there's a stigma to sales in our culture. You know, sales is arm twisting, high pressure, used car sales, liar, manipulative. I mean, that's kind of the general stereotype of sales. And so now we're a business owner, let's say, and I got to put on my sales hat, but I don't like sales. So what I often do when I start with somebody is undo that sales resistance and teaching people that selling equals service, sell from honesty, integrity, and compassion. And a lot of times people go, I've never heard anybody talk about sales like that. So, you know, I'm a teacher first, so I have to serve. That's just my nature. So that's what I teach from a sales standpoint. So there's all kinds of mindsets around sales. Like people go, I hate prospecting. Okay, well, that's a declaration that's going to cost you a lot of money because we have to, there's aspects of business where we have to proactively reach out. So I don't remember if you guys reached out to me to be on the show or if Terry Lee reached out to you guys, but one of us had to reach out. Okay. So
it was on Facebook. I was talking to Terry Lee on Facebook about something else. And then I said, hey, we're looking for a sales trainer. Do you think Eric would want to talk with
there you go.
At our event?
Yeah, and me too. Me too. Like I said, I'd love to be honest, Eric, I said, I would love to get Eric Lofholm. I don't know if he'd come, but I would love it. And Susan said, well, you know, let's just ask Terry Lee, because we knew that she had a great relationship with you. Yeah. So we asked Terry Lee to ask you, and you said yes. So
I was so excited when you asked. I'm like, of course, I'd love to be there, right? So if we don't have enough business coming in, just people knocking on our, hey, I'm ready to hire you, we got to go out and get it, right? We got to reach out and proactively reach out, you know, to individuals. And sometimes even if a lead comes to us, we still need to be proactive in the follow-up. And it's just understanding to go after what it is that we want to create in our lives, whether that's business relationships, whether it's sales, whether it's friendships. You know, I was talking to this woman the other day about friendships, and she was kind of complaining that she didn't have any friends. And I'm like, well, have you ever thought about friendship from the other person's perspective? Like, well, what are they looking for in a friend? And she's like, I never thought of it like that. I said, well, like what I was teaching her about influence, look at it from the other person's perspective. And then you can proactively reach out to people about creating connection. I'm like, you could have as many friends as you want. You got to reach out and go create it. And so it's a different way of thinking. And many people, they're stuck in fear. And the idea of reaching out or asking for the business or, you know, and so I just love helping people light them up to see what's possible so they can go out and whatever they're up to in the world, bring that into reality.
So many people are afraid of selling. You know, it's one of the public speaking, singing, and selling. Like those are up there, the big fears of the world. And, you know, to be able to find that way to overcome that fear will be a dramatic difference in your business, because it's not just about you. I have lots of clients all over the world, different stages of their business. And, you know, they come to me for marketing advice, and I'm the marketing sort of people kind of think, well, if I'm just doing marketing, I don't have to do the selling, right? But you need to be doing both. And a lot of people will say to me, well, I'm just going to hire someone for the sales. And then they'll even say, I'm going to hire somebody for the marketing, somebody for the sales. And I'm like, wait. You are the owner. You need to know and understand this, because your business, it's so integral to your business that you can't delegate that to somebody else entirely.
Well, it's also a high risk, because let's just say you hired some hotshot salesperson. You didn't know how to sell. You hired this person, and then they get recruited away because they're so good. And then you're like, what? So your business is going to fall apart now? I mean, we need to know our financials. We got to put on the accounting hat. And if you're hiring people, you got to put on the hiring hat. And if you're training people, you got, you know, there's all these hats that we have to wear as entrepreneurs. Trying to build a business, avoiding sales. Imagine if that person embraced sales and developed the skill set, it would 10 times what's possible. So if any of you are listening and you're trying to do it without the skill set, I think that's trying to solve the wrong problem. Like, how do I grow a business without learning sales? How do I grow a business by learning sales? It's such an easier path. And the odds of success are massively higher.
Strategy goes into all of your other strategies. If you're out selling, you're getting feedback. You're knowing, oh, I got to adapt my product a little bit. So it affects your product development. It affects your customer service. It affects all your marketing, because your marketing really is taking what you learn in sales and putting that into the messaging that you can be pushing out there. So it's just all so important. Like, sales is so integral, and so many people are afraid of it. Eric, can you tell me, you talked about a little bit of your sales funnel, and you say you do a lot of stuff on social media. Could you describe an example of one of your sales funnel that works really well for you?
I really focus on all roads lead to a professional sales presentation. So what I'm trying to do is get somebody one-on-one with me over the phone or over Zoom or in person. We don't do a whole lot of in person anymore. So it could be as simple as reaching out to somebody with a direct message over Facebook, offering them to get on a call with me, taking them through a guided sales process, asking them to buy at the end of that call, or book them into a second appointment, then asking them to buy, and just doing that again and again and again and again and again. That's just a very simple sales funnel that's been very successful for me.
Did you automate it ever into something that's recorded?
It probably should be automated. There's one piece of it that I do automate. And so one of my coaching programs, I did a webinar on it. And so if somebody's interested, I'll send them the webinar, and it takes them through the whole sales process. And then after that, I would get on a one-on-one with them on a Zoom or a phone call and potentially enroll them in the program. So in that model, interacting with them over social media, text, email, they express interest, send them this recorded piece of content. I don't have it set up though, where they come to my website, they opt in, they go through that in an automated way. I think that's the way that you're thinking, which is very effective. I've just never done it that way. I'm certainly not opposed to that strategy. And if any of you are watching this and you've got phenomenal automated systems, that's awesome.
Well, it also depends on the ticket level, like what the product is and the price of it. Like if you're selling very small price ticket items, something that's $39.99, you can't be doing one-on-one calls. Like our Grand Connection membership, Carolyn started off trying, doing one-on-one calls with people. And it's gotten to the point where we have to record some of it and get the messaging out in other ways, because it costs her too much time to do those one-on-ones, although she loves it. She just loves it.
It's an excellent strategy point. And it comes back to that sales model of really thinking the stuff through, because I typically will be talking with people one-on-one on the phone on a $5,000 product. I have a $299 product, but I don't usually do one-on-ones to sell a $300 product for the exact reason you're describing, right? Yeah. And it's kind of how all these pieces, they all fit together. And we really need to look at it from these multiple viewpoints.
And when you work with a client, obviously you get to understand their business and how it works for them, because everybody's unique and different in how they sell. Do you find that there's any differences between just the selling type, like the personality of the person and how you would craft their formula, or is it always similar?
Well, I was talking to a client today, he sells insurance, and he is much more comfortable in person than he is on the phone or Zoom. And so if that's his comfort zone and he doesn't mind getting in the car and driving to clients, what I did say to him though was, I think it'd be good if you sharpened up your virtual skills a little bit, because there may be some clients that even if you could meet with them in person, they're COVID scared. Like, I don't want to meet with anybody right now. Like some people are still in that, they're just in that uncomfortable space, but they still would buy on a virtual presentation. So in his particular case, I'd play to that strength of his in doing the face-to-face sales. I like group selling. That's my favorite way to sell. Put me in front of 100 people, and I'll sell 100 at a time. I'm not going to close everybody probably, but I'd rather sell 10 out of 100 than do a one-on-one call where if you close it, you're selling one. So that's something that I'm really comfortable with. And it's going to lean towards, what are people's strengths and what do they want to do? And how can we wrap a sales model around what their strengths are?
I have so many questions for you. Oh my gosh. Carolyn's jumping up and down here too. I'd like to two last questions. One of them I want to ask you about is some quick tips on closing for people, so that, maybe we could leave today with some ideas on how we might help close, and then maybe some tools that might help us as well.
As far as closing is concerned, a lot of us have kids and we went and watched them in the school play. So think back when your son or daughter was, 12 years old and they were in the school play and you showed up, and you might have had this experience like I had, where you're watching your kids and you're like, oh my gosh, they're so good. I can't believe these kids are that amazing. Like it's actually pretty good, right? And so the question is, how do they get that good? And the answer is they had a script and they practiced on their own, and they went to play practice and they did role play, and they did it again and again and again and again and again. So think about that when it comes to asking for the money. So do you think most entrepreneurs take the time to really think about what's that conversation going to be at the end when I ask for the money, explaining the product and the benefit and the guarantee and the method of payment, which credit card you take and payment terms, and then the ask at the end. I mean, just think about it logically. Most entrepreneurs, do you think they go in and wing that piece, or they really take a lot of time and think it through, practice it on their own, role play so they can deliver it comfortably? And of course, the answer is they wing it. Well, no wonder they're uncomfortable. Imagine your kids at the school play, 100 parents in the audience, and all these kids are winging it. It'd be a disaster. So what you want to do is you want to take the time and think about, well, what does that closed piece of the conversation, when we get down to asking for the business, right? Like when I proposed marriage to my wife, right? I didn't just say, will you marry me? I mean, that was the final ask, right? But there were some things, as I've gotten to know you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I don't have it memorized, but whatever I said, I went in with a plan and I said that to her, and I got down on one knee, will you marry me? So that conversation, if you can think that through, it's a repetitive conversation for the loan officer, for the consultant, for the coach, for the insurance person, for the whatever it is that you do. So you take the time to get that down. And then the first time you deliver it in person, you're probably going to be nervous. You're like, oh my gosh, it's my first time, right? But after you've done it 5 or 6 times, you're like, I got this. So that level of knowledge of the language you're going to use, the talk tracks, that will massively improve just about anybody. On the tool side, just give me a little bit more context for, are you looking for like software tools or something? What do you mean by tools?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking that there might be some new tools out there that a lot of people use Salesforce. There's a lot of marketing automation tools that will have the CRM in it. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say is that a lot of entrepreneurs that I'm 51. So like my age or older, a lot of entrepreneurs go, I'm not good with technology. I'm old school, right? And so they just shut down all this opportunity with technology. So it starts with the mindset, I embrace technology, and then it's taking a step back and going, what tools can I use? Because like right now, we're all on Zoom. So we're using technology. We're all on video, right? So I use an online scheduling tool. So it's called Calendly, but there's a bunch of them. And so if I'm booking an appointment, I can give them the link. That's a tool that really helps. So I have this appointment this afternoon with a web developer, somebody like yourself. And so we booked this appointment, and I got a text today reminding me of the appointment. And I can just tell the way the text is written. He didn't manually send that to me. And I'm like, that's a great touch. A text reminder. Hey, Eric, we have our appointment today. So looking at tools like that, you mentioned CRM, email marketing. There's so many tools out there that create leverage and make our jobs easier. So embrace technology, and then just take a step back and think about what are those tools? Online calendar link, texting automation. These are all great tools.
And of course, some way to keep track of your customers or leads and prospects so that you know where they are and you can reach out and maybe know their birthday, a little bit of information on them so you keep that relationship too.
I use, it's called Keep. It used to be Infusionsoft. Keep is like the hub that runs my business.
So Keep's the lesser of, a lot of us in the industry call it Confusionsoft because the Infusionsoft is quite confusing, but Keep, they made it and it's much more simple to use.
Yeah, they have 3 different versions of it, and they have like a light version, which is similar to maybe like a Constant Contact. the price point's much lower. It's very easy to use. And so they did a rebrand, possibly because of the people did have that name that they used to describe them. But I've been with them since 2006, and having a way to keep all those leads organized has been so helpful for me.
And you're using Honeybooks, right, Carolyn?
Yes, it's a very similar platform as Keep and very economical, but a really great platform to just funnel and channel and organize and feel confident in the process of working with people too. It's wonderful. It's really good.
We've this year has been our year to get organized. We had January was productivity. We had systems last year. So we're all just, moving towards getting these tools in place. And of course, the process is like your 3-step process for selling that can help us create that system in our business that we can scale. And we need to, all of us listeners out there, think about ways to systematize your business in selling, in marketing, in organization, so that you can scale and you're not so running around exhausted on the hamster wheel. So Eric, I'm so grateful for all these great ideas. My head's spinning with ways I can improve my selling skills, both soft and hard, and become more consciously competent at selling and help those relationships I build and those presentations work out better for everybody. And when you're selling something that's of value and you really believe in it, selling isn't that hard, because you believe what you're doing is helping your customer. A lot of people call it heart-based selling. Do you come across that word, Eric?
Yeah, and I resonate with that. We are there to serve. Right. And part of serving is loving on your client, coming from a heart space, doing what's right for them, recommending products and services that truly add value, that are fairly priced. So I resonate with that.
I'm dying to talk here. It's been disciplined to be quiet, but I want to say that your core values and how you serve are so in alignment with what we stand for, Eric. It's so good. And, this one concept of selling that really has created all the success in my own life, I wanted it for our people. And you're coming to speak. I'm so excited. So thank you. So where I want to venture next is our third core value. And just to wrap up this podcast, I know that you've collaborated with some really influential, powerful partners on your journey of exploration and success with teaching, Les Brown being one of them. He's one of my mentors. Tom Hopkins, he taught me how to sell in my 20s. And Michael Gerber, I've read all his books and done his programs in the past. And I'm curious about how that has impacted you, having the influence of those types of collaborations.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal. I remember learning about Jay Abraham and saying, someday I want to be able to do business with Jay Abraham. And I have him on my smartphone now. Got him on speed dial. I could text him right now. I have built that relationship. I've team taught with him twice. And so it is kind of surreal to, be rubbing shoulders with the who's who in the industry. Les Brown. Les asked me the other day if I would teach sales to his nephew. So I was on the phone with his nephew and mentoring him a little bit. So that was really special. Collaboration, though, is something we all can do. You don't have to collaborate with giant companies or, icons in the industry. You can just find people in your community, people you can network with. You help them and they help you. And most of the people that I collaborate with are not names that you guys would know. They're not famous people. They're just entrepreneurs out there wanting to build their business. And we look for ways of how we can add value to each other. And, this podcast is a collaboration. I come on as a guest to share ideas. We're all working together. It's all win-win. So just looking for ways to use collaboration as a strategy with intention is a great thing that we can all do as entrepreneurs.
You're speaking our language, Eric. I love it. Oh my goodness. Now, how can the audience get a hold of you, find out more about you? Can you just share that with us, please?
Yeah, so I'm the only Eric Lofholm on the planet. So if you Google Eric Lofholm, you're going to find me. That's me. I'm on all the social medias, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. So whatever social media, LinkedIn, is your go-to. Just connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, whatever that is. I've got books on Amazon.com and I'm all over the web. So just Google Eric Lofholm if you'd like to connect with me. I'd love to know that you found out about me through the podcast here and connect with you as well.
Okay, so I just want to spell out your name for the people here. And it's Eric, E-R-I-C, and Lofholm, L-O-F-H-O-L-M. So I just find your social media presence really intriguing and really authentic and genuine in sharing your life as well as your business. So I love that. And the last thing is, can you give us just a taste on the gift that you may be supplying our members at our event coming up?
Well, I have two gifts, and tell me if this is correct. So anyone that attends gets a gift, and then if they're a member, they get a different gift. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have an audiobook that has not been released to the public called Continuous Sales Improvement, and it's awesome. It's my newest content. It's over 3 hours of great ideas. If you love this content, you're going to love that. So just for attending, you're going to get that. And then if you're a member, I've got a full 12 module sales mastery course that I normally sell for $299. I'm going to give that for free if you're a member. So you're going to just know there's going to be two awesome gifts, and just attending, you're going to get a great one. If you happen to be a member, you become a member, you're going to get my entire $300 sales mastery course. It's phenomenal. And if you enjoyed this conversation, you'll love the gifts.
Oh my goodness, Susan.
I'm doing this. I'm a podcast advocate.
No, but honestly, what you're doing right now, Eric, is you're growing our community. People are going to find out. I am going to let everybody know in the months coming up to your event. At every event that we do, I'm going to share with them the value of this. So, thank you for serving from your highest self today on our podcast. I just graciously and gratefully receive all this wisdom. And I'm just super excited to enjoy the space with you at our event that's coming up. And thank you for taking the time to be on our Grand Potential podcast. And everybody, honestly, this is how you reach your grand potential, is by taking these concepts, these principles, these ideas, this confidence, this understanding, this learning. Anybody can become an extraordinary sales superstar. So please join us at thegrandconnection.ca. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you guys there.